I'm planning to make some desserts, so I need some ghee. So I'm taking 2 pounds of butter and melting it down. I do it on high because it does have to bubble. After a while, I will lower the heat a little bit. Not very much because it needs to be high for it to melt in. This butter was frozen. I had it in the freezer, so it might take a few minutes longer. I'm going to bring it to a boil on high, and then if it starts to bubble or splatter too much, I'll lower it slightly. There's no need to stir it, I'm just making sure they're all down on the bottom so that they melt. I'm letting it cook down and boil because that's what helps, the heat helps bring all the residue to the bottom. You don't realize how much is in butter, but there's a lot of impurities in there and salt, and it'll all come to the bottom. I have an electric stove that's quite hot, so it's now boiling on high. I'm going to lower it down. I'm going to put it about halfway because on my stove it still boils at that point. It's still boiling. It's been on there for about maybe 8 minutes now. I'm making 2 pounds, so it does take a little longer. If you're only melting down 1 pound, it goes much quicker. So you have to watch it. You can't walk away from it because it will burn. Once it separates, it will start to turn real brown and it'll burn. You could notice that it's bubbling in a different way this time. It's not just boiling. All those little bubbles are little fat bubbles, butter bubbles. Now it's starting to rise. So I'm going to lower the temperature so it doesn't overflow, just slightly. Again, remember my stove gets very hot. It's an electric ceramic top stove, and it does stay hot. I'm going to put the spoon in so that it doesn't overflow. Now if I touch the bottom, I could feel all the stuff on the bottom, but it's still not clarified. See? It's still not clarified. Whoops. We're overflowing a little bit. Usually putting the spoon in cools it down enough to make the bubbling go down. It's still yellow, so it's not clarified yet, but it's almost there. I'm going to take it off because it's starting to change color. So it's almost done, but I'm going to take it off, and then all those bubbles will disappear, and we'll see what we've got. So you can see a little bit of brown here, so that's why I know it's almost done. And this will all go down. Some people think they should skim off this foam. You don't skim anything off on this. You just let it sit and let it cool down, and all those bubbles will disappear, and you'll have nothing but clarity. Now you're just going to let it sit for a minute or two. As you can see, it's going down. Now as you can see how clear it is? But we got it off just in time. If I'd have left it on a little bit longer, we'd have burned it. That's how quick it goes. That's why you boil it, or you put it on high, so that it happens quickly. And there's how clear it is. Now I just let it sit. All this foam will go. Sometimes you can take it and strain it in a tea strainer, but it doesn't bother anything because that stays on top, and when I use the ghee, I just take it off if I need to. That's it. You really never have to skim ghee. That little bit is not going to hurt anything. All the residue is down at the bottom. I'm going to pour it into the measuring cup so that you can see what we got out of 2 pounds. And of course, each butter is different. But I'm going to pour this all in. You can see the residue down at the bottom. A lot of people say you render the butter. You're not rendering butter, you're just clarifying butter. You render animal fat. This is just clarifying the butter. Now there is still butter in that little bit of brown. There you are. And as you can see, the bubbles all came to the top. They're fine. This will harden, and if I wish, and I'm using it for a fancy pastry, I will take that off. All you have to do is take this and scrape it off. But with this little bit of butter in here, there's still butter even in that. So I take a little bowl, I pour it in there. You can still see the butter coming out. And when that's done, there'll be butter on the top of this. It'll harden, and I'll use it for cooking. Sometimes I just take the little bit of white foam, if I'm using this for a fancy pastry, and just kind of put it in with that. And there's your nice butter. We almost got a quart out of this, a little short of a quart, which will be enough for a lot of pastries. For the 2 pounds of butter, this whole process took about 15 minutes. Now, all this stuff at the bottom, if you tasted it, it's so salty you can't stand it. So that's all the stuff that's in your butter when you just eat it on your bread. But all this is all just salty residue. A lot of people make ghee and use that as their daily butter for toast, for cooking. And it really is delicious. It changes your food taste.